Oh man, we got a good one tonight. I am Andy Panko, host of moderator of Taxes and Retirement. Thank you for joining me. I will cut right to it. I suspect this is going to be a long one tonight, and I looking forward to it. I've genuinely been looking forward to this. I say that a lot, but tonight I really got a good one. Super excited about it. Tonight will be all about indexed annuities, more technically known as fixed indexed annuities. Very fascinating products. I super intrigued by them. They're really cool to deconstruct and look at, but super difficult to understand as a purchaser if you're not already well familiar with them, and reading through dozens of pages of legalese in a typical annuity contract for one of these things is overwhelming for the vast majority of folks. So hopefully tonight will help clear up a lot of things, explain it, help you all make sense of it, and should be fun in the doing. Just looking at comments here. David Foltz, howdy, period. Cody Garrett, whoa, is that whoa or woo? Either way, I like it with triple exclamation points, so thank you. I'll try not to waste too much time. Let me do the dad jokes for you. It's been months since I bought the book, How to Scam People Online. It still hasn't arrived yet. Must be lost in the mail or something. I went to a local video shop, and pretend they still exist. All right, just work with me here. I went to a local video shop and asked if I can borrow Batman Forever. They said, no, you have to bring it back tomorrow. And rewind it. Please be kind, rewind. And finally, I wrote a book on how to fall down the stairs. It's a step-by-step guide, right? You know, tumble. Okay. Disclaimer. Let me find it. This video is only general explanations. Let me get rid of Cody's comments. Why's Cody's comments still on here? Whatever. This video is only general explanations and education. It is not specific tax, legal, investment advice. Before considering acting on anything you see in this video, first consult with your tax, legal, or investment advisor, which I am not. Thank you. Again, where's Cody's comment? How do I... There it is. Gone. Okay. So let me jump right into it. Indexed annuities. I'll just cut right to my slides. This will help. I have this all methodically laid out instead of me just sitting here rambling. All right. So let me start by what is an annuity. Let me back up. I'm sure lots of you have preconceived notions or experiences, be it good, bad, or indifferent with annuities. I'm sure lots of you have confusion about annuities. You may not know you have confusion, but you likely do. Because there are many different flavors of annuities. It is completely unfair to say all annuities are good or all are bad. Anyone who makes a blanket statement and bashes them in their entirety is as wrong and as biased as overly zealous salespeople who try to pitch annuities as the cure to all financial ailments. They sit somewhere in the middle. Like any product, they have their place. There's different kinds of them, again, so there's various different flavors. So it's not fair to say annuities bad, or annuities have high fees, or annuities this, annuities that. Some are bad, some are good, some have high fees, some have no fees. We'll get through it. So let's start by saying what exactly is an annuity. And again, start from the basics. Put aside any thoughts or understanding or preconceived notions you have about annuities, and just let's start from the ground up. Hopefully, I think this will help provide a lot of clarity about stuff here. So what is an annuity? It's a contract with an insurance company where they agree to give you some amount of interest and or payment and or guaranteed withdrawal, etc. While you're in the annuity, all interest or gains you make are tax deferred, meaning until you take the money out, you don't have to pay or realize any tax on them. They can be purchased as qualified or non-qualified. And this basically just means, quote unquote, qualified is you're buying the annuity with pre-tax money, such as you're taking some of your IRA, buying an annuity with it, taking some of your tax deferred employer plan, like a 401k, buying an annuity with it. If and when you do that, all distributions will eventually be tax-free, just like anything in an IRA or any other tax-deferred vehicle. When you take the money out, if it's never been taxed, it's all fully taxable when you take it out, whether it was your contribution, your tax-deferred contribution, or earnings thereon. No different with an annuity. So the fact that annuities inherently have their own tax deferral feature is completely not lost, but there's no unique benefit to it when you buy an annuity inside an IRA, as a qualified annuity, because it's already tax deferred anyway. So it doesn't mean it's bad to hold an annuity in an IRA. It just means that you're not benefiting from one of the main features of an IRA, of an annuity, which is the tax deferral of the gains and the interest. And then a non-qualified annuity is simply you buy it with normal money, like money from your checking account, cash in your savings account. It's money that's already been taxed. When you buy it that way, again, all the gains on your original purchase are deferred. The taxation is deferred until you eventually take those gains out. And then when you do, depending how you take it out and when, there's different formulas for how it's taxed. Ultimately, the money you take out that was a return of your own initial purchase is not taxed again, because that money was already taxed when you first bought the annuity. It's just the gains that are taxed, but the formula by which how you determine how much is taxable versus non-taxable is slightly different depending on what you do with the annuity and how you take the money out. So that's it. So just to sum up at a high level, at its core, the commonality across all annuities are simply they are insurance. They are contracts between you and an insurance company where the interest, the gains within them is deferred, that is tax deferred until you eventually take the money out. That's about it. Outside of those two commonalities, like I said, there's many different unique styles and flavors of annuity that I'll touch on in the next slide. But that's at a very high level. That's what an annuity is. There may be other minutiae to this, but for the most part, this is all of the commonalities across all annuities. That's where the similarities stop. Why is this not going? There we go. So there's a few ways to look at the different types of annuities. Depends who you ask. They'll classify them different ways. I saw one guy who's a seasoned annuity salesperson on LinkedIn say there's only two types of annuities, period, immediate and deferred. I'm like, it's not quite that simple, as in my opinion, as you'll see tonight. But immediate and deferred, think of immediate as a pension, in effect, a pension. You take a lump sum of money, you irrevocably hand it over to an insurance company. In return for getting that lump sum, they guarantee to pay you X amount of dollars per month for the rest of your life. Done. There's no investment risk for you. Whether you die in 1 year or 50 years, you will continue getting that that guaranteed payment every month for the rest of your life. It's called an immediate annuity because those payments start in effect immediately after you hand over the money to the insurance company. Now, technically, I think immediate annuities can start the payments up to 13 months after your initial purchase. But for all intents and purposes, let's just assume you hand the money over day one, payments start, day two or whatever, soon thereafter. That's immediate. Again, it's just like buying a personal pension. That's it. Now, there's different payment options, which I won't get into in today's thing. I'll leave this for another because I don't want to suck up too much time. But the example I just mentioned is what's called single life. Again, you irrevocably hand over money. Payments last as long as you live. If you die tomorrow, that's it. Payments stop. If you die in 60 years, good for you. You won. The payments will last until you eventually die. Now, there's different payment options. You can have one such that if you die and you have a spouse, your spouse can continue on getting payments after your death. There's one where you can have payments last for at least 10 years. So if you and or your spouse both die within 10 years, payments will continue on to some named beneficiary and then stop after 10 years. So things like that. So there's different ways to structure it. So it's not always just a complete all or none, which is a big turnoff of annuities. And the insurance companies realize that, which is why they offer alternate payment forms and things like a withdrawal rider that we'll touch on tonight. So that's immediate. Deferred. Now, this is where things start to get complicated and things start to mimic and sort of look like traditional investment vehicles. Deferred is you hand over the money to the insurance company. You don't hand it over irrevocably. In effect, you're just parking it with them, and they agree to give you some amount of interest every year on your money. Again, it's deferred. They don't actually give it to you. They sort of credit it to your account. So however much you deposit on day one, whatever interest you get after the first year, you now have your original deposit plus that amount of interest. Or potentially you can have losses. It all depends on the annuity type. Variable annuities can have losses. Something called buffered annuities can have losses. Fixed index annuities may, and I'll show you what I mean by may. So deferred basically means it's loosely like an investment. You sort of deposit. I don't want to say deposit. I mean, you technically buy a contract from an insurance company. You give $100,000, let's say. You will get interest based on some agreed upon method or formula or reference to an index, as in tonight's case. And at the end of the deferral period, could be 5 years, could be 7 years, could be 10 years, whatever the contract stipulates, you'll have X amount of money. It'll be whatever you originally deposited plus the gains or losses along the way. Deferral period's over. Now what do you do with it? Well, here's where you have a few different options. You can take your ball and go home, cash your annuity out, take the money and leave, pay tax on the gains. If it's a qualified annuity, pay tax on all of it because that's an IRA, or you can roll it over to another IRA vehicle if you want, if you don't need the money. Or you can, if you bought an income rider, which we'll discuss more tonight, you can turn that on, and that's a way to then guarantee you lifetime withdrawals from your contract value for the rest of your life, or for a certain period, depending on what kind of rider you get. Or you can flat out annuitize it. And annuitize it is, from that point forward, irrevocably turning your pot of money into a guaranteed lifetime stream of income from the insurance company. Now, practically speaking, a lot of people don't annuitize these annuities. They use them sort of like an investment. And then typically, if they wanted guaranteed income in the first place, they would buy an income rider, which again, I'll show an example of. They usually don't actually annuitize it, again, because annuitization is irrevocable, and people, rightfully so, are reluctant to irrevocably hand over their money to the insurance company. So that's, again, immediate and deferred. Immediate, hand over money. Guaranteed lifetime payments start today. Deferred is you don't irrevocably hand over money. You sort of, I don't want to say use the word invest, but you give money to an insurance company. They give you some interest on it. You can still take the money out. There will be surrender penalties if you take it out prior to your contract term ending, but otherwise you can still take the money out. And at the end of the contract period, you can take it all out without surrender. You can annuitize it. You could roll it over to another annuity. So you have a bunch of options. Deferred annuities are where the indexing and the interest crediting comes in. Because again, while the contract is deferred and not yet turned into income, it's going to be, it's going to get interest based on some methodology. Tonight's methodology is what we're focusing on. It's called indexing or indexed annuities. So within the deferred annuity realm, there's ultimately just 4 types of interest crediting methods. One is fixed, super straightforward. They'll say, okay, you deposit money with us, and the deposit's the wrong word, it's a banking term. But again, you buy this contract today, you put $100,000 into this contract with the insurance company. We guarantee to pay you a flat 3% interest per year for 10 years. And then at the end of 10 years, you'll have $100,000, plus 3%, plus another $3,000 plus blah, blah, blah. I can't do the math that quick in my head, but, you're going to have whatever, $140,000, $150,000 maybe at the end of those 10 years, whatever the math is at 3% annual interest. At the end of the 10 years, again, you can take your ball and go home. You can roll to another annuity. You can annuitize it, turn it into an irrevocable lifetime stream of payments. That's fixed. That's pretty straightforward. Variable, this is where things start to get complicated. Variable is, instead of getting a fixed, guaranteed, stated rate of interest, your money in the contract is literally invested in securities that look and feel a lot like mutual funds. They're technically not. They're called sub-accounts, but functionally, for all intents and purposes, they're practically mutual funds. And you can pick. You can generally pick. You may get a roster of 100. You may get a roster of 30, but you can choose which specific investments you want your money to go into. There'll be super conservative options, like some sort of stable value account. There'll be bond options. There'll be equity options of all flavors. So depending what you're invested in, your money could go up. Your money can go down. There's no floors. There's no zero loss floor in variable annuities. Whatever the returns are of the investments in which you choose to invest, that's what your money's going to do over the time. Now, there's also fees on it, and this is where annuities get a lot of bad rap, and rightfully so in many cases. Variable annuities are notoriously higher in fees than they probably need to be or should be. So, for example, I've seen variable annuities where the all-in fee is about 4% per year, because the investment options you invest in typically aren't low cost. They're not going to be like Vanguard mutual funds that have only 0.03% expense ratio. They may still be Vanguard funds, but because it's in an insurance wrapper, they're going to jack up the fee. So I don't have an example of a particular fee, but I have seen Vanguard funds in a variable annuity. The fees were higher than the straight up mutual fund, Vanguard mutual funds. So they get a little money out of you that way. There'll be an annual sort of what they call mortality and expense charge. That's just like the cost of running an annuity. Basically, they pass through to you. That can be 1% or more. If you buy an income rider to eventually get some guaranteed amount of interest or income from this variable annuity, figure that's another % plus the expense ratios of the fund. So it's quite easy for variable annuities to have 4% all-in annual expenses every year, which is why they often get a bad rap. So even if your investments go down, let's say 10% in the annuity, well, you lost another 4% because of fees. So now you lost 14% that year. Or if your investments go up 10%, strip out your 4% fees, you only made 6% that year in the variable annuity. Fixed index. This is what we're talking about tonight. These are highly manufactured, and I don't mean that in an underhanded, insulting way. It's fact. These things are highly, highly manufactured, and you see what I mean by that. So the interest they pay isn't a flat fixed rate. You may have an option to put some or all of your money in a fixed rate, but you also have options to put it in an indexing account. The interest they pay is indexed off of the returns of some underlying index. Indexed annuities are not invested in actual investments. They are not securities. They give you interest based on a kind of a side bet reference to the returns of some index, such as the S&P 500, and I'll walk through examples to show you what I mean. And finally, these are relatively new, commonly called a buffered or structured annuity. This is basically a mix between variable and fixed index. Oh, I should say an important thing about fixed index is the interest you get credited any given year will never be less than zero. Doesn't mean your contract value won't go down, and I'll show you why, but the interest you get will never be less than zero. Whereas a variable, as I said, the interest can be positive, could be negative. It all depends what the investments do. A buffered or structured annuity kind of sits in the middle. They may protect you from the first 10% of loss. So if your investments go down less than 10%, you'll have zero interest for the year. If they go up X amount, you'll get some portion of that gain. If they go down more than 10%, then you start to eat the difference and you have to realize the loss, beyond that 10%. That's a buffered or structured. All right, everyone with me? I know there's going to be lots of questions. I'm just going to kind of rip through these slides, and I promise I'm expecting tonight to be a long one, so I will stick around more than the hour because I'm assuming there'll be lots of questions, but I'm going to focus really just on the slides. I'm not disregarding the questions for those of y'all who are posting questions here. How's my use of y'all for those of you who use y'all? Was it good? Was it appropriate? That's one of my goals for 2020 is to start using y'all more, or use it at all for that matter. I'm from New Jersey. I never say y'all. Okay. Indexed, and so within indexed annuities, again, technically called fixed indexed annuities. I'm just going to call them indexed, just like my sign says up here, but the proper name is fixed indexed annuities. There's ultimately three different mechanics that play into how much interest you get credited each period. And when I say interest crediting period, I mean, let's assume you have a fixed index annuity that has a 10-year contract term, meaning if you leave within 10 years, there will be some surrender period. After 10 years, you're free to go without surrender. Along those 10 years, you'll get interest typically credited each year or sometimes every 2 years. It all depends on the contract, but to keep it simple, let's assume every year is when they credit you interest based on some mechanism. What is that mechanism? Well, it's going to be some combination of these three things. One will be the participation rate. So let's assume you have an index annuity where your interest is based off the return of the S&P 500. So a participation rate of 80%, for example, says whatever the S&P goes up by, you will get 80% of that credited towards your account as interest. So for example, if the S&P goes up 10% and you have an 80% participation rate, you'll get credited 8% interest. Make sense? One other thing to note, and I don't think this is as big a deal as other folks make it out to be, but when you would actually invest in the S&P through a fund or something, ETF or whatever, the S&P pays dividends. The stocks in there pay dividends. Currently, I think the S&P dividend yield is around 1.5%, give or take 0.10%. So if you're actually investing in the S&P, your total return from the S&P is a function of two things. It's the change in price of the S&P over however long you hold it, and it's the dividends that were thrown off along the way. Let's assume price goes up 10%. And there was 1.5% dividend thrown off, your total return in holding the S&P is going to be 11.5%. Again, 10% price gain plus 1.5% dividend payout to you. With all these index products, they index just the price change of, or they reference just the price change of the index, not the total return. In other words, in our example, if the S&P went up 10% plus there's a 1.5% dividend, your 80% participation rate will only be on the 10% price change. It will not, you get no benefit of the dividends that these indices pay. Now, I personally don't think this is some nefarious, underhanded hijinks that insurance companies use to dupe you. You just have to ask. It's in the contract. Now, again, these contracts are super unwieldy for the average person to try to make sense of. So yeah, I can see how and why insurance companies should be more put it in your face, like, hey, this does not include dividends. But I don't think it's an underhanded tactic. It's just it's how they choose to do it. And so long as you're aware of that, no harm, no foul. The issue is whether or not people are aware of it, which I suspect many are. So that's a participation rate. Next is a cap rate. So cap rate simply means the maximum amount of interest you can get for that interest crediting period, which again we'll assume is a year, is capped at some percent, capped at some rate, and let's assume 4%. So let's assume you have 100% participation in the S&P, meaning whatever it goes up, you get that much interest as well. but capped at 4%. So if the S&P goes up 10%, your 100% participation means your interest is 10%, but you have got a 4% cap, so all you're going to get is 4% for the year. Makes sense? If S&P goes up 3% and you have 100% participation, you'll get 3% interest, which is still below the 4% cap, so you'll get 3% interest credited that year. And again, with all these fixed index annuities, if the index ever goes down, you will never get negative interest credited to your account. It'll always be floored at 0. But again, that still doesn't mean your account can't lose value, and I'll show you why that is. And finally is something called a spread rate. A spread rate is just sort of them shaving some percentage points off the top. So whatever your credited interest would otherwise be, they will just take a fee off the top. So let's run through another example. Let's assume you have 100% participation and no cap. S&P goes up 5%. Your interest will be 5%, but then if you have a 2% spread, just slice 2% off the top, all you get is the remaining 3%. Make sense? So a spread rate is just like, it's an explicit fee. Now, again, even net of the spread rate, your interest credited will never be less than 0. It'll always be floored at 0 in fixed index annuities. Makes sense so far? All right. Where are we at? Surrender charge, common, not common, but present in virtually all annuities. There are some that don't have them, mainly those that are not sold through brokers. There are some that can be introduced through, it's called fee-only channels. Advisors that don't have insurance licenses, they just basically do the work of matching insurance buyer and seller. And it takes away a lot of the work and takes away a lot of the commission and fees. Some of these will not have surrender charges to them, but otherwise assume all annuities, deferred annuities, are going to have some sort of surrender. So basically, as I sort of already touched on, let's assume you have a 10-year contract. You buy a fixed index annuity with a 10-year term. That means if you withdraw money in the first 10 years, you may be subject to an early withdrawal, aka surrender penalty. Typically, contract terms are 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Could be more than 10. Not super common, but nonetheless, they're out there. And generally, the surrender charge decreases a bit each year. So common example is you have a 10-year contract. The surrender charge in the first year will be 9%. In the second year, it'll be 8%. The third year will be 7%, blah, 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 blah. 10th year, it'll be 1%. And then after 10 years, it'll be 0, meaning there's no surrender charge. Now, I think some of this depends on states, because insurance our insurance rules and laws are state by state dependent, which make these things that much further complicated. But most annuities give you the ability to do a 10% withdraw 10% of your contract every year with no penalty, which is nice. So they're not completely illiquid and locked up. You can typically take out 10% each year. If you take out more than that, that's when they slap you with the surrender charge of, like I said, 9%, 8%, 7%, whatever it is for the year you're surrendering. Fun fact, one of the reasons why surrender charges are there is in part to, in effect, have you pay the commission that was paid on the sale of the product. So one of the all insurance products in the US are sold with commission. I don't believe there's a product that strips out commission completely. It's not how insurance works in the US. So one of the selling features of annuities is you, the buyer, you don't pay a salesperson at all. There's no cost to you or no fee to you to buy this annuity. The salesperson gets paid a commission from the insurance company, which is true. So in that sense, you're not directly explicitly paying any fee for that service, but you're indirectly paying for it. One of the ways in which is the surrender charge. So those the commissions are typically paid up front. So even if you're in an annuity for 10 years, the commission was paid usually, within the first year. The insurance company needs you to stay in this contract long enough for them to make enough money off of you, for them to, in effect, recoup the commission that was paid at the inception of the contract. So an insurance company should make money. I'm not saying, when I say they need you to stay in the contract long enough for them to make money off you, that's not a dirty, underhanded thing. They should be profitable. If not, they wouldn't be in business. So, they're entitled to make a profit. But the point is, the longer you're in the contract, the more money they'll make off of you. If you pull the ripcord and bail out of this contract early, the insurance company will not have made enough off of you to recoup the commission they paid. That's a large part of why there's surrender charges. You basically then eat the cost of that commission by paying the surrender fee, so you don't get back all of your money. The insurance company keeps some of it, and a large part of it, again, goes to recouping the commission they paid to the salesperson. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily bad. I'm just letting you know when you get a pitch and someone says, "No, it's free to you. My service is free. That you don't pay me." You sort of do, albeit indirectly. Okay, moving on. This is a big one. A large part of the reason why people would buy deferred annuities. So why you buy an immediate annuity? Simply, you want a pension. You want a guaranteed monthly lifetime income for the rest of your life. Just like a traditional pension, that's all a basic immediate annuity is. If you buy a deferred annuity, you have to ask yourself, what am I buying it for? Am I buying it to try to make a lot of money as an investment over the 10 years that I have it? Or am I buying it such that at some point in the future, I have the option to turn on a lifetime income or withdrawal stream because I want to need guaranteed income? You can try to do both. Typically speaking, you're not going to get both. The more you try to do multiple things with one product, the less good that product is going to be at any one thing. It'll start doing all things kind of okay and not really any one thing really well. So always keep that in mind. The more bells and whistles there are, the chances are the more watered down each of these individual features is going to be. So you have to really ask yourself what's important to you and why are you wanting to buy this annuity in the first place? Is it to make a lot of money from investment growth, or is it for guaranteed income? If it's for guaranteed income, then these withdrawal riders are commonly purchased along with the annuity. So I'll show you an example to make more sense, but the way these basically work, don't get too caught up on the wording now. It'll make more sense on a spreadsheet example I have. Is you put your money in, your contract value is going to go up or go down or stay at, not go below zero based on whatever interest crediting method you have, whether it's fixed index, whether it's fixed, whether it's variable, doesn't matter. Your contract value is going to go up or go down. You can buy a rider where they will give you, there'll be this your actual contract value, and then this parallel sort of phantom hypothetical, what's typically called benefit base. Your contract value is going to go up or go down as its underlying interest crediting does. The benefit base will only go up by some fixed amount every year, typically called the roll-up rate. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 7.5%, maybe it's 8%, whatever. That'll tick up year by year. Let's again assume it's 10 years. At the end of 10 years, you're going to have your contract value, which is whatever it is based on your investments or interest crediting. And then you're going to have your benefit base, which was a steady, stepped up every year, hypothetical phantom value. The reason why I call it hypothetical phantom, that's not cash value. You can't take that amount and walk away with it at any point during this annuity. Your contract value is what's actually yours to walk away with, subject to surrender charges, but that's actually yours. The benefit base is this fake thing. You can't actually get it, use it, take it. What it's used for is to calculate guaranteed withdrawals you can make starting at some point in the future. So you're going to have this benefit base that ticks up every year by some pre-agreed rate, 7%, 5%, whatever. Then at 10 years, you can decide, okay, I want to take guaranteed lifetime withdrawals out of my contract. And the contract will stipulate, okay, depending what age you are when you start those withdrawals, your guaranteed annual withdrawal amount is X%. Let's assume 5%. So whatever your hypothetical phantom benefit base is, you can withdraw 5% of that per year for the rest of your life guaranteed. Even if when your contract value depletes down to zero, you'll still be able to continue taking out or getting that guaranteed 5% payment for the rest of your life. That's, in my opinion, a large part of the value in annuities. And annuities are often and mainly used for guaranteed income, hence the value in these riders. They can be used as an investment alternative, specifically a bond-like equivalent in the case of fixed index annuities, which we'll touch on. And if I don't, remember to ask me, because there's a good chance I'll forget by the end of the night. But okay, so this is a rider. What do I have here? Okay, so let me now go to spreadsheet and make this pig come to life. Give me a moment. All right. Let's do it. Let's make the magic happen. All right, there's a lot going on here. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. So let's step through this. Disregard all this stuff for now. I'll just gray it out so you don't get distracted by it. Just look at this. Here is, and this was a real example someone in the group sent me today of an actual indexed annuity in its terms. Purchased for $100,000, so bought the contract for $100,000. The S&P 500 is the underlying index that the interest is referencing. There's a 100% participation rate, but a 2.85% annual cap, which means if the S&P returns anything more than 2.85% per year, this contract will get 2.85% interest for the year. If it returns between 0 and 2.85, the contract will get between 0 and 2.85, or if the S&P is down, the contract will get 0 interest for the year. And there's no spread. Purchaser bought this annuity at age 52. And there's an annual interest crediting. So the way it works is whatever the S&P's price is at day one, compare that to what its price is at the end of 1 year. That gain or loss is what the contract's interest is credited off of. So what I dumped in here, these were the actual price returns, excluding dividends, of the S&P 500 for the last 10 years. So this is 2021, 2020, 19, 18, 17, blah, 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 blah. You get the gist. Actual returns. So I just want to see hypothetically what this annuity would have done over the last 10 years. So again, age when the person bought it, here's the years for 10 years. Here's the S&P's actual price return each of the 10 years. Here's the interest that the contract would have been credited. And you can see this play out. So S&P got over 13% interest. The contract gives 100% participation in that, but subject to the cap of 2.85. So the contract got 2.85% interest that year. And you can see the same thing every year. So any year the S&P returned more than 2.85, that's all the contract got. 2000, whatever this was, I guess it was 18, 17, 16, 2015. The S&P was down a little, contract got 0 interest. It didn't lose any interest. And then blah, blah, blah. 2018 was a down year, contract got 0 interest. And then the last 3 years, S&P was on a tear, but because of the cap, contract only got 2.85% interest. So the dollar amount of interest, and these do compound. So the first year started with $100,000, added $2,850 of interest. Let me get rid of this for now. Sorry. So the contract value at the end of the first year was $102,850, and then on that was another 2.85%. So it does compound. So you can see every year what the contract value would have been. Fast forward to the end of 10 years. The S&P's price return, again, excluding dividends, had an annualized return over the last 10 years of 14.25%. Blazing hot. This is not characteristic. We all know that. Stock market is, by all definitions, super expensive. It's come down some. Arguably, should probably come down some more to cool off some more. But I don't think anyone else was surprised that the S&P did so well, because we all knew it was blazing hot for the last 10 years. So anyway, the S&P averaged annualized 14.25% return over the last 10 years. This contract annualized 2.27%. Are you surprised? Shouldn't be. If you knew how this contract functioned, you knew you were capped at 2.85% per year at best, 0 at worst, and somewhere in between for other years, you should not be surprised that your contract averaged 2.27%. So if you were to walk away at the end of 10 years after your surrender period, take your ball and go home, you'd have $125,209 to take out of this annuity, on which you'd have to pay tax on $25,209. If this was in the qualified world, again, meaning you paid it with $100,000 of after-tax money, you have $25,000 of taxable gains. And annuities get no long-term capital gain treatment. All gains are taxed as ordinary income. So not that that's bad, just be aware. If this was a qualified annuity, meaning you bought it with IRA money, then all of this is fully taxable, just like any IRA is. Now, you don't have to distribute it. You can roll it to another, to a traditional IRA, an investable IRA. You can roll it to another annuity, or you can outright distribute it if you want, pay tax on it. But the point is, big difference. And this is why do not consider indexed annuities to be equity-like equivalents. They are not. They never will be. Case in point, right here. Right, S&P got over 14% per year. Your contract got just over 2. But low volatility, fairly steady eddy, and you can reasonably expect what you're going to get. The assumption is low to mid single digit returns in most fixed index annuities is what you should expect to get. Could be a little more, could be a little less, but do not expect to get double digit plus. They're not structured to work that way. Clear so far? Lovely. Okay, let's move on about the rider. This is where the magic really happens. So let me now unshade this. Throwing shade at the rider. Just kidding. Oops. Make it white instead. Yeah. All right. So the rider, I touched on it before. Remember I said that you get this hypothetical phantom benefit base, and it's going to go up by some fixed percent per year. In the case of the example that someone in the group gave, there's a 7%, what's typically called roll-up, could be called a ratchet. And that's the other thing with these products. Functionally, mechanically, the vast majority of fixed index annuities all operate like what you're seeing right here, including these withdrawal riders. But the terminology used by the insurance companies is proprietary and marketing spin. They can have all sorts of fun names, fun, fancy, slick, shiny object names for these things, these functions, these features. But at their core, they all do this or some derivation of this. So don't get too hung up on the terms. I'm using the term roll-up rate. This could be called something different in the annuity you see, but functionally, this is almost certainly how it's going to operate. So again, you start the contract with $100,000. Your actual contract value is going to do whatever it's going to do based on what we just looked at. This hypothetical phantom benefit base will go up a fixed 7% per year. So let's look at this here. You started the contract with $100,000. At the end of year one, your benefit base, again, not your contract value, your benefit base goes up by 7%. It's $107,000. The next year it goes up by another 7%, 114 and change. Goes up, goes up, goes up, goes up, goes up, goes up. At the end of 10 years, this hypothetical phantom benefit base is $196,000 and change. What does that mean? Hold that thought. Now, these riders aren't free. The more guarantees and bells and whistles you introduce these products, they're going to cost you. This rider has a 1.05% annual fee. Now, look what happens. Pay attention to column H. Without the rider, notice there's no rider charge. Your contract value goes up by the amount of interest you get, and it doesn't go down because interest will never be less than zero. Once you throw a rider into the mix, that rider charge comes out of your contract value. So in years where your interest is floored, because the index goes down, your interest is zero, your contract will still lose money because the rider charge gets deducted from your contract value. So while it's true that, and this is another thing to be aware of in the marketing pitches for this stuff, it's true that you can never have losses in your interest crediting with fixed index annuities. But that doesn't mean your contract value can never go down. Once you start buying riders, it very well can, because those riders have fees. Those fees get deducted from your contract value, as is the case here. All right, so you can see how this rider fee changes the analysis. Now, at the end of 10 years, the contract value is no longer $125,000. It's only $113,000, because every year they're shaving 1% right off your return. So no surprise, what was a 2.3% annual return on average is now only 1.2% average annual return, because the rider fee of 1% was taken out of your balance every year. So now your annualized return of this contract is only 1.2% over the 10 years. Anyway, so let's go back to this rider. So why would you buy it? You buy it for the eventual guaranteed withdrawals, guaranteed income you can get from it. So again, your benefit base goes up a fixed 7% per year. So at the end of 10 years, your phantom benefit base is almost $197,000. What this means is, at the end of 10 years, you can turn on the rider and you can take guaranteed withdrawals for the rest of your life based on this benefit base amount. And the percentage amount you can withdraw will be based on your age. Your contract will stipulate what the age are. These ages and percentages are right from the contract that the person in the group sent to me. So the person will be 62 at the end of the 10th year of the contract. And at the age of 62, his contract says he can withdraw 4.85% of the benefit base for life, which means per year, on the benefit base of $196,000 and change, he'll be able to take out $9,500 guaranteed for the rest of his life. No more, but guaranteed $9,500 for the rest of his life. Now, this is the value in these riders. Remember when I said with the regular basic immediate annuity, the money you hand over is irrevocably given up to the insurance company. You cannot get that money back. All you get is the monthly benefit payments for the rest of your life. If you die early and you select a payment option that stops when you stop, done. You got skunked on that deal. If you live a really long time, congrats, you beat the house. But people are reluctant to irrevocably hand over the money, and I get it. And insurance companies get it. So that's what these riders are for. So the way these work is you have this phantom benefit base on which your guaranteed withdrawals are calculated. Again, in this case, it's $9,500 for life per year. Each year you take out this $9,500, it comes out of your contract value. And again, your contract value is only $112,000 at the end of year 10. Now, your contract value will still continue to get interest each year, somewhere between 0 and some positive amount of interest each year. And the rider fee may still be deducted. It depends. The rider fee, I think, typically stops once you turn on the rider feature. So let's assume the rider fee stops after 10 years. So your contract will get some amount of interest, but you're going to be taking out $9,500 a year from it. There's no way your interest is going to keep up with that, right? Because you're getting at best 2.85% interest per year. Yet you're taking out $9,500, which is, darn near 10% of your contract value every year. So what's going to happen is, if you do the math, if you live more than 10 years, you will deplete your contract value down to 0, right? But the magic of the rider is, even when your contract value is 0, the insurance company guarantees they will still give you $9,500 a year for the rest of your life. That's the benefit of these riders, right? And the other benefit is it's not irrevocable. So let's assume you're 2 years into this rider. It's the 12th year of this annuity. You started taking out your withdrawals under the rider. You've since taken out, You've since taken out, let's call it 20 grand to keep it even. So your contract value at the end of year 10 was $112,000. You've since, 2 years later, you've since taken out 20 grand under your rider. So now your contract is only going to be $90,000. If you want, at that point, you can stop. You can say, I'm done. I'm taking my 90 grand and I'm going home. Well, the rider stops at that point. You no longer get guaranteed withdrawals, but you still have the contract if you want it. Whatever the contract value is, you can take it and leave at that point, should you choose to. So that's why people like these. It's not irrevocable like the normal basic immediate annuity. You can monetize, you can get a guarantee from it, but you can still sort of pull the ripcord along the way and take whatever's left and leave if you want to. But again, do the math. If you stick around at least 10, 11 years, pulling out $9,500 a year, your contract will deplete to 0, at which point there's nothing to walk away with. But then at that point, you have this guaranteed lifetime income of $9,500 for the rest of your life. So that's the real value in this. For many people, is this guaranteed withdrawal option without the requirement to irrevocably hand over your money to the insurance company, because people are, getting uncomfortable doing that, and I get it. All right, let me pause there, take some questions. A great relevant question here. Once you start the annuity, your contract value is irrelevant anymore. Is that right? So in this case, and by annuity, you mean once you start the withdrawal rider option that you bought? Yes, the contract value is largely irrelevant. It's not completely irrelevant because it's still there until you take out enough withdrawals to deplete your contract down to 0. There's still some contract value you can walk away with. And you stop your guaranteed payments, but you can walk away with some non-zero amount of contract value. But assuming you bought this thing for income, not to have a contract value you can take and use, assuming you bought it for this guaranteed income feature, then yes, practically speaking, this contract value is irrelevant, because if you live long enough, you will deplete the contract value to 0. So you don't typically buy these withdrawal riders for the expectation that I can have my cake and eat it too, meaning I can take a lot of guaranteed money out and still have a pot of money to tap to do whatever I want with. No, that's almost certainly not going to happen. These products are designed so that it almost can't happen. You can see how juicy this payment is relative to the contract value. You will deplete your contract value if you live long enough. If you don't, if you die a year in, then whatever contract value you have goes to your heirs, which is another feature people like, because again, if it's irrevocable, there is nothing to go to your heirs. So with these riders, there's typically some death benefit associated with it if you die prematurely and don't get enough payments out of it to pay yourself back. Okay, great question, whoever that was. Let me just show some real life examples of couple different index annuities, not to show that they're good or bad, just to show you to realistically set expectations about how these things work. Again, do not think these are equity or equity-like securities. They are far from it. Which is why I think the industry had to stop calling them equity index annuities. These used to be called equity index annuities in the 90s. They dropped that along the way and started calling them fixed index annuities because I think people felt like the word equity was misleading because they're neither invested in equities nor do they produce returns anything like equities. So let's stop calling them equity index annuities. Okay, let me go back to my slides. Everyone enjoying this as much as I am so far? I say that only half sarcastically. Oops, sorry. Where was I? Hold on. Don't mind me fumbling with PowerPoint. I promise I'll be back. Here we go. Okay. Share screen. So this is an actual fixed index annuity I've seen firsthand where the interest crediting period is once a year. The contract was purchased on February 4th, 2018. So the interest is credited every February 4th to February 4th. What it does is it's indexed off the S&P 500, the price change of the S&P 500. It looks at what the S&P's value was on the start of the indexing period and what it does each month. So this one's a unique wrinkle. What I've been going through before was what's called a simple point-to-point indexing. It looks at the S&P starting at point A, looks at its price at the end of point B, which is typically a year. Whatever the change is, that's the index return against which your interest is referenced off of. This one is a little different. It looks at the S&P's return every month during that year, and it applies a cap each month. So each month, the interest is capped at 1.25%, but the loss is not capped at all. Now, don't freak out yet. This doesn't mean the contract will get less than zero interest. The contract's interest is still floored at zero because, again, interest is credited once a year. But in this particular example, the way the interest is credited, it's the sum of the S&P's returns each month, subject to a monthly cap of 1.25. So let's walk through this. February 4th, 2020, and this started right at the beginning of the pandemic. The S&P was rounding up $3,300, or 3,300 was the value of the S&P. At the end of that month, its value was 3,100. The S&P was down 5.8%. So the monthly return was negative 5.08. March, horrific month. S&P was down 20%. April, the S&P was up 14.2%. But because of the capping mechanism for that month, this annuity's monthly return was capped at 1.25%. Let's look at the next month. S&P was up 9.4%, but because of the cap, the monthly return is capped at 1.25. Long story short, do this exercise every month where S&P losses are not floored, but S&P gains are capped at 1.25%. At the end of the year, simply sum up these returns. That's how much interest this contract gets for the year, subject to a floor of zero. So, read my notes here. Over this 1 year period, the S&P was up 17.41% from March 4th, 2020. I'm sorry, February 4th, 2020 to February 4th, 2021. S&P was up 17.41%. This contract made zero. It got zero interest. Now, is that bad? Is that dubious? Is that nefarious? Is that malicious? Depends who you ask. I don't think so. You need to be fully aware of how this features and how this works and how you can expect it to perform going forward based on whatever hypothetical numbers you want to run through it. This annuity performed as it was contractually designed to do. It's unfortunate that because there were some really strong or really bad down months, they completely dragged down the return because the up months were capped at 1.25%. So all said and done, S&P was up over 70%. This contract got zero for the year. Well, let's look at what happened the following year, which just ended. The following year was February 4th, 2021 to February 4th, 2022. Exact same thing, except now the monthly cap was increased to 1.5%. Generous to the insurance company. It was 1.25% last year. It's now 1.5% this year. Go through the exact same process. Look at the S&P's returns every month. That's this column. If it's down, you don't cap it or floor it. If it's up, you cap it at 1.5%. At the end of the year, simply sum up all these monthly returns, and guess what happened? This contract again got 0%. So for this 1 year period, the S&P was up 16.24%. This contract got 0. Right? So does it mean the contract is bad? I don't know. I'm struggling to wrap my head around this. I understand. I know how and why it works, and I understand how it got to 0 interest. But something just feels like, how can the underlying index be up so strong for 2 years in a row, yet this contract gets 0? Right? So that's why I really want to drive home. These are not equity investments. They are nothing close to equity investments. Do not consider them as such. Worst case, your interest is 0. Best case, it's maybe a few percent per year on average. That's what you should reasonably expect from these. All right. 2 more slides I want to show, then I'll do free for all for questions. Here's another live example, completely different annuity than what we just looked at. This was the member in the group who was so kind to share with me an annuity he has. So here's where things get complicated. The annuity we just looked at was all just based off the S&P 500. Everyone knows not everyone, but anyone who has at least a basic understanding of investing knows what the S&P 500 is. You understand its risk. You understand how much it can go up or go down in a year. And the interest crediting method was pretty straightforward, right? You get, well, not the example I have because that monthly thing, but the spreadsheet example I did was pretty straightforward. You get 2.85% per year of whatever the S&P goes up. That's it. But the way these things typically work is it's not just one index that you're stuck with and one set of interest crediting mechanisms. You typically have a menu of choices, which further complicates these things. So this particular annuity, and you can see here, you can allocate your money to different accounts. This person here allocated his annuity contract to 4 different indices and or interest crediting options. So let's look. Here's where there's some marketing spin, in my opinion. So this one's super simple. Let's start at the top line. S&P 500, 1 year point-to-point return with a cap. That's the spreadsheet I walked through. 100% participation. So whatever the S&P goes up, you participate in the same, but you're capped out at 2.9%. Or your other option is, what if you do, what is this? You still have a cap, but now the cap is 4.9%. Sounds better, right? But wait, there's no free lunch with these things ever. In return for a higher cap, look at this asterisk. You now have a 1% spread shaved off the top. So you get 100% participation in the S&P, capped at 4.9%, with 1 percentage point taken right off the top, again, subject to a floor of 0. So what's ultimately going to be better? This is where it's frankly just gambling. No one knows which one of these options is ultimately going to be better. It's impossible to know. Does it sound better to get 100% participation at a cap of 2.9% with no other fees or deductions, or get a 4.9% cap but with 1% sliced off the top? I don't know. Nobody knows. The future will tell us what would have been the best option, but looking forward, it's impossible to tell because there's so many ways this can play out based on what the S&P does during the year. There's more options. Here's a 2-year point-to-point, but now it's different. There's no cap. Ooh, sounds good. No cap, right? But wait, there's a 15% participation rate. So if the S&P goes up 10%, you only get 1.5% interest. S&P goes up 20%, you only get 3% interest, right? So it doesn't sound so good now. So it sounds great to say no cap. Oh, but wait, the participation rate's really low. Maybe I'm not making out so well after all. And then this one, ooh, wait, okay, great. So you don't like a 15% participation, you want more? We got something for you. Here's a 30% participation. But wait, oh, look at this, double asterisk. 2% fee is deducted each year. Damn, no free lunch, right? So you get more in interest from participation, but then they slice off 2% from it. So which one's going to be better? Damned if I know, right? The future will tell us. Hindsight will be 2020. So anyway, so often the index choices will be something you've heard of, something relatively straightforward like the S&P, subject to some combination of caps and spreads and participation rates. But then this is where things get complicated. And this is where they're highly manufactured. Index annuities are already quite manufactured, as you can see. All this stuff about caps and spreads and participations is already quite manufactured to start with. Now throw in these custom hard to understand bespoke indexes, and it's manufactured on top of manufactured. Indexed annuities are to financial products what Twinkies are to food. Good luck trying to read the ingredients. It's so manufactured. You don't really know what they do or what's in them. I sort of liken that these ways. Now, insurance people will disagree with that comment and tell me I simply don't understand them. I do. I clearly understand them. The average person doesn't, and that's the problem. It's the average person who buys this stuff, who purchases these. It's nearly impossible for unless you're really good at math and finance and spreadsheets and rather complicated formulas. You are not going to fully understand this. I almost guarantee it. Anyway, I move on. I digress. So I just want to say, so here's another common sales pitch is, okay, with the S&P 500, you only get a 15% participation rate. Ooh, that's super low, 15%. Well, guess what? We got products with 100% participation, or look at this, 110% participation, right? Super slamming deal. Is it? Well, what's the index on? 110% of what? In this case, it's the U.S. Innovative Leaders 5 Index 2-year point-to-point participation rate with fee. What does that even mean? You got to really dig into the details. I'll tell you what it means because I pulled that up. So it may sound great. Hey, there's an index where I can get 110% participation or whatever return it has. But wait, double asterisk. What's that? Oh, 2% fee shaved off the top. Okay. So that right there, the participation isn't as generous as it may look because there's a 2% spread fee sliced off the top. But more importantly, let's look at this index and what it is and what it does. Here you go. The U.S. Innovative Leaders Index. I guarantee you have never heard of this outside of the index annuity world. I suspect this was created specifically for the index annuity products. Long story short, I didn't put the whole pitch deck here, but it is a custom crafted index meant to invest in 50 companies who are innovative leaders in their tech or healthcare or big data fields, kind of cutting edge type stuff. Sounds great, right? 50 stocks on the leading edge of technology should be phenomenal. But the way this index is created, it's structured such that the target volatility of the index should only be 5%. So if the 50 stocks they're investing in get too volatile, they ratchet down the stock exposure and put more money into cash or U.S. Treasury bonds, which are super low volatility, super low interest. So they manufacture this index such that the volatility is going to be low, which means the returns are going to be low. It sounds great that it's 50 stocks in high-tech companies, but you are not going to get stock-like returns out of this index. It is designed to not do that. And further, there's footnotes in there that say at one extreme, the index could be entirely in cash. So there's no way it's going to earn anything if it's all in cash. But anyway, I digress again. So let's just look. Here's the return of this index. Over the last 10 years, this index returned an average 5.3%. So you have a 110% participation rate. Sounds great, right? 110%. But wait, on an index that's only been averaging about 5%. So that means your interest would be 110% of that is what? 5.5%. Or in this case, I'm messing up the math. 5.8% roughly. Over the last 10 years, you would have gotten 5.8%. But wait, there was that 2% spread sliced off the top. So now it's only 3.8% you would have gotten on average over the last 10 years. Not horrible, better than 1%, but still far short of what an equity portfolio would be, which again isn't bad. These products are not designed to produce equity-like returns. They're designed to produce this 0 to low to mid single-digit returns. Do not expect more from them than this. And then even less if you start adding on, rider fees. So anyway, look, this index last year lost 0.2%. So you would have got 110% of zero. So you would have got zero interest last year. All right, that's that. So the point is, you got to really read the fine print. Don't be overly impressed when someone says, "Oh, well, that annuity is only giving you a 15% cap rate. We got over 100% cap rates." Well, that doesn't necessarily mean much. You got to look at the underlying index and the other fees and costs associated with it. All said and done, these products again are manufactured so that you end up over the long term with low to mid single digit returns. Do not expect more from them than that. All right, where am I? So that's it. That's all I have to go over. Oh, look at that. Dead on 1 hour. Giggity. Okay, so I will take questions now. Let me stop my screen share. I'm parched. Let me hydrate, and then I'll start with the questions. So I get a little heated by this, and not these aren't inherently bad products. That's not what I mean by that. I don't mean to bash them. I just want to make painfully clear, because I've seen lots of ways in other Facebook groups, in marketing pitches, in chicken dinner seminars, how the emphasis is pointed and directed towards certain key terms, towards certain flashy things, like high participation rate. Again, sounds great on the surface, but you got to look into it, right? At one extreme, right? This is a jerky example that doesn't really exist, but what if the underlying index is a fixed 0.5%? And I tell you, I'm going to give you a 200% participation rate. Sounds great, right? But you have to ask on what? I'm going to say, oh, well, on a 0.5% interest, fixed interest. So that means you're going to get twice that. So you get 1% interest per year. Doesn't sound so glamorous, right? So do not take any of these things at their face value. You have to dig into it and really understand the mechanics of the index and the mechanics of the caps and spreads and participation rates. The other thing to know is that year to year, these terms can and will change. So for example, the cap rate of the annuity that the person in the group has was originally 2.9% on the S&P. It's since dropped to 2.85. So these things can and do change year to year, and they typically change to be less favorable, frankly. However, your original contract will stipulate the max or the min. So it'll tell you the worst case floor, the lowest amount of cap or participation rate you can have, but it won't, the actual amount won't be guaranteed throughout the life of the contract. They typically do change every interest, or they can change every interest crediting period, subject to the hard max and mins that are laid out in your original contract. All right. So there often are like teaser sort of intro rates, right? So it may be like, oh, the participation rate is currently 50%, but next year it's going to drop down to only 40% or something like that. Just be aware of that. All right, let me start at the top. Cody Garrett, woo, disclaimers. Who doesn't love a good disclaimer? Okay, what's this? Can you discuss the so-called tax savings of annuities? Insurance sales always point out withdrawals loans are tax-free. I'm sure David Myers jumped all over this. I'd be let down if he didn't. Does this really mean you're borrowing or withdrawing the principal tax-free, but eventually once you withdraw gains, those are taxable? Correct. Yes, your understanding is correct. So annuity, insurance people don't pitch annuities as tax-free, because I don't think you can take loans from annuities. If you can, maybe you can. I never heard of it, but you typically don't. It's cash value life insurance is the tax-free income pitch. And what happens is cash value life insurance, there's a term life, there's a traditional life insurance component. If you die, they pay you. And some of your premiums go towards a forced sort of savings pot, a cash value account. And there's different ways in which interest could be credited. It could be fixed, it could be variable, it could be indexed, just like functionally similar to what we talked about tonight. So the cash value will build up over time. And yes, the big draw, the big pitch to retirees about cash value life insurance is you can borrow against that cash value and it's tax-free. Well, guess what? No loan is taxable. You can borrow against your house and it's tax-free. You can borrow money on a credit card. You can go buy a vacation on a credit card. That's a tax-free loan. Loans are never taxable because they're not income, they're debt. Cash value life insurance is no different. Now, to be fair, there are unique advantages to cash value life insurance, such that when you do actually borrow money, your cash value isn't actually reduced. So you still continue to earn interest on that amount of cash value. Because the way these loans work, they're technically a personal loan you take from the insurance company. It's not actually money you're taking out of your cash value. It's a personal loan from the insurance company where that loan is collateralized by the cash value. So if you ever default on paying that loan back, the insurance company knows you have cash value. They'll take it. It's theirs. They just seized it to pay themselves back. So yes, loans are never taxable in the first place. So you can take loans against a cash value life insurance policy. And what you're basically doing is, if you do have a loan outstanding when you die, the outstanding value of the loan is simply deducted from what your face amount of death benefit is. So the kind of the allure, and I get it, I can see the benefit, is you have a death benefit. All else equal, neither you nor your beneficiaries benefit from it until you die. Then they get paid out. What if you can tap it and use it and get the benefit from it during your life? Well, you can take a loan against it. To the extent a loan is outstanding when you die, they simply deduct the loan from your, death payout amount. That's how it works. So, yeah. So the tax-free aspect is you're taking a loan. Tax-free is not, you are not withdrawing money from the account. If and when you do withdraw gains from your cash value, actually withdraw, not take a loan, you do actually withdraw gains, they are taxed as ordinary income. There's no magic, there's no tax specialty there. It's not even long-term capital gains, it's ordinary income. But again, the intention is properly structured. If you use it the right way and set it up for the long term, you're never actually taking money out, you're just taking loans against it. And then when you die, whatever's left basically gets paid out to your heirs. That's the intended use of that as a retirement tool. Great question. Again, I'm sure Dave Myers jumped on that. Oh, look at that, Dave Myers. There it goes. Yeah, okay. Yep. Cool. David Fultz, since 2019, no insurance company offers an inflation-adjusted annuity. Is that due to low interest rates? Would that change if interest rates rise? Yes, I cannot personally confirm that, but I've heard this from two different reliable sources, one of which is Jim Saulnier. Last week, I heard him say that. Yes, I think it's simply a function of the insurance companies aren't willing to take that risk. Insurance companies are really good at managing, monitoring, quantifying risk, and they don't take risks they know they can't quantify or control or hedge. I believe inflation is one such risk. So now inflation is low as it is, and there's not a great way to hedge it, neither for us nor insurance companies. They decided, we don't want to stomach that risk. Or if they did, it'd be so prohibitively expensive to you, the purchaser, that no one's going to buy these annuities in the first place. Now, I heard another guy say, who I trust less than these other two sources, that there are apparently still some annuities you can buy with inflation riders. Now, I think maybe the disconnect is what Jim Saulnier says is single premium immediate annuities. There aren't any that have inflation riders now. Maybe what the other guy was referencing was deferred annuities may have some sort of inflation component somehow baked into the product. I'm not entirely sure. But generally speaking, no, I don't think it's common to have inflation riders, meaning if you buy an annuity that pays you $5,000 a month or $5,000 a year, whatever, you will get $5,000 a year, period. Doesn't matter how high inflation gets, you're going to get your fixed $5,000 a year. Yes, all of these video. The slides. Am I posting the slides? Good question. I don't know. The video will be posted on YouTube. I'm reluctant to share slides because to be honest, not that I distrust any of you, but I don't want people taking these, sharing them, misusing them, misrepresenting them, changing them, and passing them off as their own, and then it coming back to me looking like Andy made some slide that's wrong. So I'm hesitant to do that. So no, I probably won't be sharing them, but the video will be freely available on YouTube. Okay. Where are we? Jay Nadler, it's all about trust. That's why I purchased one from a salesman that told me his mother invested in the same annuity. I like it. There's lots of trust in this industry, insurance and securities, investments alike. It is, you have to trust the person you work with. Mary, if you roll a maturing non-qualified annuity to a new non-qualified annuity, can you avoid paying taxes on the earnings until the second annuity matures? Yes, you can. As long as you keep it within the annuity wrapper, you can continue deferring the taxes. Now, at some point, I don't know if this depends on state or the insurer, but you can't keep an annuity in deferred status forever. They will force upon you annuitization and the realization of income at some point. I don't know whether it's 80 or 95. I don't know. I knew it at one point, or at least a particular annuity. I knew what it was. But eventually you have to take it. But until then, yes, you can simply keep rolling it to another annuity. Just keep deferring stuff. Andy Panko, that's me. I think it's important for people to understand the difference between annuitization versus lifetime income in the phantom bucket. Yes, very, very different. And just to recap, this is important. Annuitization, you irrevocably hand over your pot of money to the insurance company. You can never get it back. What you get in return is their guarantee to pay you X amount of money for the rest of your life or the rest of your spouse's life if you die first, or for a fixed 10 years, whatever payment structure you choose. But the point is, you'll never get that lump sum back. You can't. With these income riders, you still have some control, which is why these things were offered, because people want that. So long as I mentioned before, if you're in the rider long enough and take out enough withdrawals, you will deplete your contract value down to zero. But along the way, yeah, you can stop. You can give up the guarantee and you can take your contract value and go home if you want. So it's not irrevocable. I mean this is a compliment, I think. Insurance companies are fantastic at coming up with new products, innovative products, and they have phenomenal sales and marketing. Now, I'm truly envious of how good they are at creating products. I don't know how much of it is demand driven versus supply driven. Then they go stimulate demand based on supply, and the sales processes. But part of me thinks that the reason why things are so complicated, why there's so many features, is because anytime you have an objection to an existing product, they come up with a new way to overcome that objection, a new twist, a new product, a new feature, a new shiny object. Like it used to just be plain vanilla annuities. You handed over money irrevocably, you got a lifetime payment. Well, people were reluctant to do that because they don't like that irrevocable part. So that's when these other payment options came into play, like we'll pay you at least 10 years or pay you for your spouse. Take it a step further, then there's things like this, these riders, right? There's no irrevocability to it. You can take your money out early, maybe with a surrender, or past the surrender period, you can take it all out and walk away. But again, there's no free lunch. You're ultimately paying for it in one way or another by lower interest or by higher surrenders or whatever it may be. Oh, speaking of one other thing, let me go back to my spreadsheet. There's one thing I wanted to show. If you do want to view this as an investment, for example, and they shouldn't be. Annuities should not be viewed as investments. They are not. You do not buy them to make a lot of money like you would with a traditional mutual fund or ETF. You generally buy them for the guaranteed income, or in the case of a fixed index annuity, you just want some slow and steady, low to mid-single digit returns over the long term. You can buy it for that, to grind out 2 to 5% per year on average. Anyway, so this sample annuity we looked at, including the rider, here's how it would look. This person put 100 grand in at age 52. He turns on the rider 10 years later with that, 7% roll up phantom based thing, turns on the rider 10 years later. If he lives till 95, he will have ultimately realized a 4.84% annualized return on his original $100,000 purchase. If he lives till 90, he will have realized 4.49%. If he lives till 85, which is the average life expectancy, he will have realized 3.93% annualized return on his $100,000 purchase. And the returns are less if you die sooner. Why is this? So this is where it's important to distinguish. When you buy an annuity with this rider, this phantom benefit base, and they tell you, yeah, we got guaranteed 7% increase per year, you are not earning 7% per year. Be clear about that. This is another one of those things where I think people sort of divert and refocus your attention in the marketing. Is that, yes, 7% guaranteed. Insanity, right? No. 7% is on this phantom base on which your guaranteed income is derived. You are not actually earning 7%. Here's the math. Even if you live till 95 on your original $100,000, what happens is you put in 100 grand, you get nothing for 10 years. Then starting the 11th year, you get $9,500 a year for the rest of your life. In this case, this ends up being, 30 something years for this person. You do the math inclusive of time value of money and interest. This ends up being a 4.84% annualized return if this person lives till 95. As you can see, that is not a fantastic return, and it is far short of the 7% guaranteed roll-up rate. You are not earning 7%. Do not view this as an investment where you're actually earning 7% in an investment. Now, I'm not saying this to badmouth annuities. I'm just trying to make the point clear. Do not treat or view these as traditional investments. They are not. Even the best case scenario for this annuity, person lives till 95, pulling this guaranteed income long after his contract value depleted, it still only equates to a 4.84% annual return. So is that bad? Depends what you bought this for. If you bought this for massive growth and you thought you were going to get 7% guaranteed, you are not. If you bought this for the guarantee aspect, because you're a conservative person, because you're not shooting for the stars, or shooting for the moon, whatever the saying is, trying to crush it and quadruple your $100,000, you just want to ensure you have some level of guaranteed payment for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. 4.84% isn't bad. You're not buying this for return. You're buying this for guarantee, stability, and certainty. That's my beef with people comparing annuities and bad mouthing annuities, saying they're all bad, the returns are horrible. Well, for what? Horrible compared to traditional investments? Sure, over the long term they will be. They're not traditional investments, nor are they intended to be. Although they look and act like it at times, and are sometimes mistakenly sold as if they're investment or investment-like things, they are not. Okay, let's be clear about that. All right, moving on again. Let me go back to questions. Hope you found that helpful. Where are we? Once you start taking the monthly dollars, what happens if I die next month? Does the balance go to my beneficiaries, or am I done like a pension? So it depends. You may have already responded back, but if you irrevocably annuitized it, no, the payments stop, or maybe they live on for your spouse. Or if you have an annuity where you can name a non-spouse beneficiary, payments will live on for him or her. But otherwise, if you annuitize it, it's done when you're done. With these riders, yes, if you die along the way and there's some non-zero amount of contract value left, yes, your heirs get the rest. Or even in the deferral period, another common feature of these deferred annuities is, regardless how your contract actually goes up or goes down over the deferral period, if you die in that time, your heirs are guaranteed to get at least as much as you put in originally. That's typically how it works. Or for an extra fee, you can pay for a higher level of guarantee. Again, there's no free lunch. But yeah, there is usually some death benefit insurance-like component attached to these things for deferred annuities. For traditional annuitized immediate annuities, no, there's usually not some sort of death benefit associated with it. I would think my contract is fairly common. My rider fee is actually based on the GLWB value, not the contract value. Right. Ooh, good point. I think I may have messed this up to make it to make the fee look smaller than it is. It wasn't intentional. I think right. So in my example, the 1.05% rider fee I was charging my spreadsheet, I was charging on the contract value. This person I think is right. In the handful of annuities I looked at, the rider fee is actually typically charged on the phantom benefit base, which is larger than the contract value. So that will further erode your contract value over time because there's that much more fee coming out of it, which again circles back to, do not buy this to try to make a lot of money on the contract value. You buy it either for the eventual guaranteed withdrawals you can make for the rest of your life, or if you are buying it for investment purposes without the income guarantee, expect low to mid single digit % returns over the long term. Great point, whoever this was. The problem I'm having is there'll be next to nothing for beneficiaries, if not zero, once annual distributions start. That's right. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Or if you can, the benefits are going to be so watered down that you're really not having your cake and eating it too. You're having a small slice of cake and you're only like, licking it. You're not really eating it. So that's a weird, awkward analogy. I don't know how I came up with that one. But yes, and that is the struggle with this. And again, insurance companies realize that. That's why they offer these extra riders you can buy for some sort of guaranteed death benefit for it. But that comes at an additional cost. So whatever your objection or beef is with a particular product, guaranteed, if there's not already a solution or an option for it, there will be at some point, because again, insurance companies are phenomenal at being innovative and coming up with new things to sell. Damn, Skippy, this is going to be an extra long session. 20 minutes late and still going strong. I suspect this to be the case, but I'm glad you all are getting so much out of this. All right, if you go with an index annuity, it's much easier to go with one. It's much easier to go with one with just one moving part instead of multiple. The less manufactured, the less moving parts and bells and whistles, the easier it is to understand. Now, the highly manufactured stuff doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that much more complicated to make sense of and to try to reasonably guess how it's actually going to perform going forward. Nobody knows at that point. So yes, generally speaking, the simpler, I won't say the simpler the better, but the simpler, the easier to understand by far. No. So any info on Symmetra Prestige? There are dozens, if not hundreds, of index annuities out there that all go by different names. So the top few insurers, to my knowledge, those that issue the most index annuities are places like Athene. I think Nationwide does a lot. I think Jackson does a lot. Just go to their websites and look. You'll see 3 to 10 different index annuities options, all with different marketing names. it makes it so incredibly difficult to try to compare Athene's Annuity A versus Symmetra's Prestige versus Nationwide's Monument 2 or whatever it's called. It's darn near impossible. You just have to, whatever you look at, make sure you understand how it works. Once you understand the basic mechanics, you can make sense of almost all of these things. Again, it's just going to have different marketing names to all these terms and conditions, but the basic mechanics will all be like what we went through tonight. But sorry, no, long way of saying I don't have any info on this particular one. Yep. So this person, like I mentioned, the participation rates can change year to year. Ours dropped from 50 and is now 35. Somehow our former financial planner neglected to mention that. Now, insurance contracts are ultimately buyer beware. Yes, a good insurance agent should make you fully aware of all the features and potential drawbacks, but everything will be spelled out in your contract. At the end of the day, it's ultimately on you to fully understand that 60-page beast and all the formulas in it. So unless the insurance company flat out violates that contract, they're not in the wrong. So yes, this is common. As I mentioned, you may start out with a relatively high participation rate for the first year, second year, third year, but then don't be surprised if the economics get less juicy, less enticing for you as the contract progresses throughout its life. Is a guaranteed withdrawal rider different from a guaranteed income rider? Yes, I think. So this may also depend on the insurance company, how they choose to use the term. My understanding is withdrawal rider is just what I mentioned. You have a contract value of X. In our case, it was $112,000 or something. And you're guaranteed to be able to withdraw $9,500 a year from that for the rest of your life, even when the contract eventually depletes down to zero, which it'll do in like 10 to 12 years. That's a withdrawal rider. A guaranteed income rider, I think, is just another way to say you can annuitize your contract value, irrevocably hand it over, get a payment for life with no contract value, to be taken. I think that's how that works. And even within withdrawal riders, there are two different ones. There's guaranteed living withdrawal, which is what we went through. There's also, I forget what it's called. There's like a guaranteed total dollar amount of withdrawal you'll be able to make. It's not guaranteed for life. It's just guaranteed for a total dollar amount. So it's the devil's in the details. You have to read the fine print of what your particular rider is. The one I showed is one of the more common ones. It's called GLWB, Guaranteed Living Withdrawal Benefit. So it'll last as long as you last, which is typically why you want to buy this. If you're buying an annuity for guaranteed payment, you probably want it for your life. And not just for some fixed period, but it's up to you. The use cases and situations for when this does or doesn't make sense are endless because of all the different ways you can structure and concoct these things. Love the examples and tables you used. A great overview of these annuities and their structure. Thank you, whoever this is. And thank you for the 53 of you who are still sticking around an hour and a half into this thing. Okay. I can see how annuities may have a function in your portfolio, but they seem to be very complicated. No doubt. This sums it up well. They can have function, specific use cases. They're definitely not the right answer for everyone in all cases, and very complicated. There's no way around it. The plain vanilla annuities, the basic hand over money, get a pension for life. There's nothing complicated about it. It's as simple as it gets. This stuff, these deferred annuities that riders, super, super complicated, especially index annuities, where there's all sorts of ways you can structure the interest crediting, especially when you layer that on top of these bespoke indices that exist only for the sake of trying to artificially produce returns that are within some tight band of ranges. There's other ones out there, like Nationwide uses ones called Zebra and Mosaic. You look at those things, good luck figuring out what those indices are and what they do. It's the same thing. It's like target volatility, multi-asset class. They could kind of invest in whatever. The point is for them to try to manufacture a sort of slow and steady return. Where are we at? Product summary. I guess this is something Jay has. Okay, so yes, I see Jay shared some info about an annuity he appears to have. How would any insurance company give you lifetime income on the phantom bucket and still let you keep the account? Or when you start lifetime income rider, does it mean also starting an annuitization? No. That's the beauty of these income riders. You do not actually annuitize it. You do not hand over the money irrevocably. So why would they let you keep it? Well, they're playing the odds. Again, look at the math of what I did. Even if you lived until 95, your annualized return over those 43 years is only 4.84%. The insurance company is taking a bet basically that it can take your money over those 40-something years and use it to get 4.84% returns. And the other way that annuities work, and this is important, and this is a big benefit of annuities, is something called mortality credits. So let's think about a basic single premium immediate annuity. You start at age 60, and it's going to last as long as you live. If you die tomorrow, it stops. If you die when you're 110, it goes until you're 110. How can the insurance company possibly take that risk? Well, here's how it works. First, remember I said they're in the business of quantifying and managing risk. There are people called actuaries whose job it is to put odds around people dying. And it's not individual people, it's large buckets of people. So like, they can't really look at me and know when I'm going to die, but if you take 1,000 of me, they can statistically get really close to figure out when, on average, 1,000 of me is going to die. So that's what they do. They don't sell annuities as one single annuity. They sell annuities in what's called the big block. They'll sell the same annuity to you and 1,000 other people. So now there's 1,000 people in this pool. And yes, of these 1,000, some people will live until 100, in which case the insurance company, the person won. On the flip side, some people unfortunately die in their early 60s. So what happens is the people who die early, they don't get their money's worth out of the annuity. The money they irrevocably handed over stays in this pot, and it goes ultimately for the benefit of those who do live long. So the law of large numbers, and these actuaries put mathematical formulation around this, they know there will be people who die at 60, there will be people who die at 100, but on average, this pool of 1,000 people is going to die at 85.3 years or whatever it is. That's how they value it. That's how they handicap this. That's the bet they take. If for whatever reason this pool ends up living substantially longer on average than what the insurer originally thought, then yes, the insurance company will lose money on this block of annuities. But they'll make up for it by, with the next block, they're going to revise their actuarial assumptions and price those blocks of annuities accordingly. So anyway, so that's how it may sound weird. Well, why would they let you still have access to your money and give you this guaranteed payment? Or the way it works also, when you do turn on this withdrawal rider, you can't take money out of your contract. If you do, it'll reduce the amount of guaranteed withdrawals you're allowed to make. That's important to know. So in our example, we started the benefit, the rider period, with 120 grand of contract value, and that got us a $9,500 a year guaranteed payment. If the next day I take out 60 grand, so now there's only 60,000 left in my contract. Well, guess what? My guaranteed payment for life now drops to $4,800 or whatever it is. So again, no free lunch. If you take your money out prematurely, it does drop or eliminate your guaranteed payment. So there's that. So the insurance company knows they're only guaranteeing you a payment as long as you keep the money in there. And then if you do outlive it, no harm, no foul, because there will be other folks who died early and didn't get their money out in its entirety. So good question. Insurance is incredibly complicated behind the scenes. I worked at an insurance company for 4 years. I worked in an actuarial group, actually, helping do valuations, not for this, but for pension plans. And the science is fascinating behind the art and the science of trying to mathematically figure out when people are going to die. It's an interesting business. 7% roll-up rate. This simply means, I don't know if you missed it, go back and check the video, but on the phantom benefit base of income that's used to determine how much you can withdraw into your rider, that roll-up rate just means that phantom base goes up by 7% every year. It's separate and independent from your actual contract value. Tony, are these traditional investments? No, they're not. Your contract value is being reduced. Okay, I guess it's in response to someone else. Looks like, what do we got left here? Great job. I'm just looking for the comments. Where we go? Great. It looks like people are finally. Oh, there's still 49 eyeballs watching. Surprisingly, damn, good for you, people. Good job. Okay, what else do we have? Any other questions, anyone? Before I wrap up. Bottom line for me, if I ever were to consider an annuity, I would seek out unbiased annuity expert to review policy. No way I would trust an annuity salesperson. Thanks to Andy Panko for a very informative session. My pleasure. I am passionate. I enjoy this. I enjoy like the math and the intricacies of trying to dig in and understand these things. They truly fascinate me. Not right. for a lot of people in a lot of cases, but they have their use cases in the right set of circumstances. Okay, looks like that is it. Hour and a half, new record, I think. Thank you all for sticking with me. Thank you for the great questions. Hope you found this helpful. I will post this up on YouTube. Next week is a mailbag episode. So if you do have questions, send them over to me through direct message or plop them up in the group, I guess, whatever. And I'll do my best to answer. That is all. Thank you very much for spending your evening with me and hopefully enjoying the wonderful world of fixed index annuities. Take care. I'll see you next time.